Next up on the stool is to do the stretcher mortises. So I've got the stool together. According to the drawing, I need to come up 8.5 inches. So I'm just going to mark that here with my square. So this is the bottom of the mortise, and I'll use the stretcher to mark the top. I'm going to reset my T-bevel to 15 degrees. That's the leg angle. I'll mark this. Now this is another through mortise. There's my mark. So I don't really need a line on this face. So I'm just going to put a mark on each edge. Now I need it over here and here, inside and outside. And I need the width of that. I'll turn that so that's off the bench there and make sure I'm back on my mark. So there's the width there, and I will mark there and there. Okay, so I've got the top and bottom of the mortise, so I'll continue doing that for the rest of the legs. All right, so I've got those all marked. Now I want to mark the inside and outside faces. Now, because I'm going to be going in at an angle, I don't want to make this mark very deep. I just need to mark where it's at. Now, I don't want to come up here, since I can avoid it, because I don't want my the bevel to be on the outside. So I'll do that. That puts the bevel of the marking gauge, of the marking knife on the inside, on the waist side. My mortise gauge is still set for a half inch width, so I just want to make sure. Actually, it should still be pretty close, because the last thing I did was mark these. I am going to double check though, just to make sure that the fence is in the correct place. So the inside, this is the final surface, but all these other sides are going to get tapered, so I'm going to just put a dimple from there and then double check it over here, and that is very close to center. So I'll go ahead and mark these. So I want to make sure I always use the same edge as a reference. Okay, the mortises are all done, and now it's on to the fun part, those compound angle tenons. Okay, I've got the stool back together, and the parts are all lined up here on my layout that I drew. So I've got the legs lined up at 120 degrees apart. So what I'm trying to do is figure out where to start the tenons on the stretcher system. I think I want to start at the bottom of the stretchers. I need the length here. Now remember, the tenon's going to be, or the shoulder's going to be angled this way, so I want the furthest out part here. I drew on here 3 circles. So this outer one is the inside diameter of the legs. The inner one is the inside diameter at the top, and then this one should be the dimension I'm looking for, the dimension to the inside of the tenon here, or the shoulder. So I just happen to have, one of my squares is a 9-inch sterret, and since these are 8.5 inches up, this will work great for determining if my line's in the right place here. So if I just slide that up like that, that looks really good. I'm really happy with that. So I'll rotate this around. Let's see here. So that looks good. And then there's no reason to think this one's any different, but just for grins, there we go. Okay, so I can use this line to mark where my shoulders go. All right, I've trying to figure this out, and I think I have a plan now. So what I've done is I took that 1/4 inch glue stick stir that I had earlier, and I drew some lines on either side of my center lines here to give me the 1/2 inch width of or thickness of the tenon that's going to be coming out. And I also, with a compass, I drew a radius here that's about 1/4 inch longer than this tenon's going to be when it's done. I just measured that off of the legs. I came from the inside where the shoulder's going to be to the outside. It's about 1.5 inches plus a little bit. So I went out 1 3/4. So I think what I need to do next is cut these to length, because I need to be able to, right now everything's covered up that I want to see. So I need to get this to a length so I can see these lines here. So I'm going to go cut these to length and then come back and mark this out. Now the next question is, how do I know how long they're going to be? I think I'm just going to eyeball center here. Yeah, because I can get close enough there. And then just mark the length on here. There we go. Doesn't have to be perfect, so I'll just cut those and then come back and we'll mark the tenons. All right, I've got the stretchers cut to length now. I've got them laid out on here in the correct orientation, and I'm just kind of looking at the various lines here, and everything looks symmetric. Now, the way I've got this laid out on here, if I look at this one, you may remember I want to make sure that this tenon doesn't stick out past this surface. So what I've done is I've rotated this, right, the tenon's going to be like this. So this is the corner I'm concerned about. So this is the thickness of the tenon, and I've got it lined up right at that corner. In fact, I can move that over just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I want the tenon to go essentially through that corner. Now this is a touch longer than it needs to be, so I can move that over a little bit more. So I'll make sure I do that on every corner there. Okay, they all look good. So now I think I can come in here and mark right from there to that edge there. Okay, so that means my tenon is going to go there and there and there. Okay, and then the other thing I need is this angle, And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a line here. Now, theoretically, per my drawing, that's 8.5 degrees off of a center line. While I'm in this position, I also need to mark my shoulder. I almost forgot that. So I'm just going to put a mark on either side here, because that's where that's at an angle, that same 8.5 degree angle. Okay, I think that's enough information now to lay out this. The other angle that I need is this angle, but I know that's the 15 degrees, so I have that separately. I need this angle. So what I did is I took my T-bevel and I lined up the body along this line, and then lined up the blade there. So that gives me that angle, theoretically 8.5. I guess at this point I don't really care what it is, so I'm not going to try and measure it. Now I also need the complement of that angle. So I need to align this up so it's 90 degrees to that one. So what I did, I'm going to grab, this is the stop off my table saw, and I know that's nice and square, so I'm just going to line that up like that. So now I can align. Now, one thing else I should mention, I've got the top of this marked, so I really want to make sure this stays right side up. Bob Lang mentions in his article that he cut the first set of these angled the wrong way, had to remake this part. I'm going to avoid that. When I had this on here, I drew some lines on here at an angle just to remind me. So what I've done so far is I've drawn this angle on here, aligned there, and I also need the shoulder over here, and that's why I need this, right? Because the shoulder line should be 90 degrees to that line. So if I do that, and just to confirm, yeah, I'm lining up with my line there and also over here. So, and I think for this, since that's a shoulder, I want my marking knife. Okay, so that's a shoulder. There is one side of the tenon. The other side's over here. So I'm going to measure over. Now, my tenons ended up being slightly bigger than a half, so I'm just going to mark that. So let's see here. So that goes like that. And I'm using my fine mechanical pencil here. Oops. There we go. Now at this point I don't know where the shoulder is here, so I need to come up from here. Once again, this is right side up, so the legs come like this. So I need my 15 degree angle over here. And I need another T-bevel, which I actually happen to have. Okay, so this T-bevel I have stashed away in another drawer. I think this is the first time I've ever needed 3. There we go. Okay, once again, let's make sure that's top. So I'll make sure I start in my line there. Not too deep, since I'm not cutting straight in, I'm cutting at an angle. I need to do the same thing over here. Okay, that looks okay. And now I should be able to, with this one, mark this other shoulder. Okay. Okay, and those line up all the way around. Okay, good. So I'll finish marking the rest of these and I can start cutting my tenons. Okay, I've got all these marked now. So a couple things I found that were helpful. One, once I made a mark on something, I made the same mark on each one. That was easier than trying to do all of them, all the marks on one tenon. Also, what was helpful, to get the width of the tenon, instead of measuring, which I was just kind of estimating, I used my mortise gauge. It was still set to the setting for the mortises, and I verified that I didn't really go any bigger than that, so that did match. So then I just lined one of the points up on there and made a dimple on the other side, and then used that to mark the width of the tenon. And then just came back in here, lined that up, and drew that line. So I now have on each one, I've got the thickness, the shoulder lines, and I guess that's it. That's all I need. Now, what's going to be tricky here is this cut will be saw-like. This cut will be fairly easy, but my concern is this one, because I'm not starting on a flat surface there, so I'm going to have to figure that out. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. Maybe, oh wait, know what, I know what I'll do already. I'm gonna I've got my offcuts here from the length. Never throw your offcuts away. I'll clamp another offcut, an offcut that came from here. I'll clamp that on here, and then I can saw, and I think that'll work fine. I'll just extend that line up a little bit. Before I saw the tenons, it's going to be easier if I take this apart. There's no reason to keep it together now. So this should, if I pull the right direction here, there we go. So I want to clamp this so my cut is going to be pretty vertical. And ideally, my saw is on the right side of my cut line. So I think this is going to work. Yeah, I left those lines pretty light because I didn't want to make a deep line that wasn't parallel to the shoulder, but now I can see a little better what I'm doing. I'm holding with the part angled, so I'm holding the knife vertically. So there we go. That's much easier to see now. All right, I've got it clamped in the vise, and I've used a drafting square to make sure that's nice and vertical so I can make it easier for me to saw. I've got a different saw now too, because my dovetail saw doesn't go deep enough to cut all the way down to there. So I've got I guess this is a tenon saw. I'm not quite sure what this is. It's not really long enough to be a tenon saw, but it's got a deeper depth of cut, and it's a filed rip, which I want. Now I got to remember here, my shoulder is not, parallel to the bench. It's at an angle. So we'll see how this goes here. So I'll do all these cuts first. Okay, I just realized I got my order of operations wrong here. I want to clamp something here, but now I don't have a perpendicular surface to clamp to. I should have sawn this one first. So hopefully I'll be able to clamp that on there despite, well, I can actually, I'll just put the offcut back on there. There we go. That'll work. All right, I've got that offcut here to help me clamp this in place. So I've got that all aligned. I transferred the line up, and it's almost at the edge of the part. It's just slightly off the part. So I think I'm ready to go here. Now, I don't need to leave this on the whole time. Once I'm down into the cut, you know, about halfway, I can take that off because I'm going to have to, because at some point, you know, that's going to close up my curve. So I'll give this a go here. Oop. Okay, I added another clamp there to keep that from twisting. All right, it's starting to close up now, so there we go. All right, I've got this clamped in here so that the shoulders are horizontal. So now I'm going to trim these up a little bit. Oops. There we go. So the lines help me see where I'm hitting and not hitting if I'm holding the float horizontal. I've gone and numbered all the joints now, so I know which tenon goes in which part. So I'm now fitting this into this particular mortise. Okay, I've got one of these ready to go, so that works out well. It took about 15 minutes of fiddling, so I'll do the other two. Okay, number 2, number 3. All right. Next up, before I do the dry fitting, I'm going to taper the legs and shape the seat.